Hello? 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 Hi. Hi. Okay, firstly, thanks everyone for being here, because I know there's a raging party out there, and it's a really nice day as well. So, yeah, thanks for checking this out. My name is Vijay. I'm also known as the Float Guru, and today I want to present a point of view that I really enjoy, and it's about sensory deprivation tanks. How many of you have tried a sensory deprivation tank before? Sick. Nice. How many of you know what a sensory deprivation tank is? Nice. Good crowd. Okay. So for those who don't know what it is, now imagine a tank, a really beautiful tank. Looks pretty futuristic. It's filled with about 500 kgs of salt and 10 inches of water. So it's not a lot. It's about that much. And it's filled with magnesium salt. So magnesium is really good for your skin. It's good for your body. It helps you with pain and all that. But basically what it does, it helps you float automatically. So you don't have to try. So imagine a tank, you go in and you float effortlessly in the tank. Then what we do is we set the temperature of the water to your skin. And what happens is the same way your nose is in front of you, but your mind ignores it, exactly the same way your body or your mind starts to ignore your body because there's no difference in the temperature. So you're floating in zero gravity, water around you is exactly the same temperature as your skin, same with the air in front of it, you don't feel your body. Then once you turn the light off, there's no light, no sound, no taste, no smell, and no touch. So just take a moment to imagine that. Your whole life is just your sensory experience in your day-to-day stuff. But imagine being in a tank where you don't have a body, no light, no sound, taste, smell. What do you think happens? Yeah, like, it's pretty buzzy. Okay, so I'll tell you a bit of history before I tell you what happens in the tank, on how the tank started and what they're trying to achieve. So in about 1950s, 60s, there were like two schools of thought, where one thought was about, okay, your experience is just the external world and your mind is processing this experience. And the other school of thought was that, no, there is a mind within you that's doing its own thing, but the experience outside also accounts for something. So they were trying to separate and see, what is it? Is there an experience without any external world? And is there an internal world that's going on? Or is it just one? So they try to come up with this environment where there's no senses involved. So the tank was actually vertical. You had to have a helmet on, and there would be a pipe connected to you to let you breathe. And they tried all these different things. And then finally they figured out the salt content and that you could float horizontally. And once that happened, it took them about 10 minutes to realize that, no, once you get the external world out, there is actually a whole range of internal things going on within you. And it's as full as the external world. And it took them about 10 minutes to figure this out. And what they did was to explore their consciousness further. They started more and more testing different kinds of floats and all that. As a result of that, they saw that their well-being was being improved. They saw that what they perceived out of the universe was a bit different. And that's how the float industry started. And now Melbourne has the second or the third highest number of float tanks in the world. Perth has the highest. And there's hundreds and hundreds of float centers all over the world now. And that's exactly what the world needs right now, and I'll get into that. So right now in the current world, when you go to a float experience, they're like, oh, it's very relaxing. How many of you are relaxed after your float? Yeah, it's very relaxing. But that's not what we want to look at. We want to look at something that's beyond just relaxation. What are you using this for? And how do you transform your consciousness using a float tank? And that's what I want to share with you today. What is it doing to your consciousness? And what are the 3 different things that you'll experience? And how do you use the tank as one of the tools in your life to completely transform who you are and get to where you want to go and accelerate that process? So that's what I want to share with you guys. A bit about me. I'm an electrical engineer. I did that for 8 years and I wasn't happy. So I used to have a 9-to-5 job and broke my shoulder and all that. And then I went for my first float experience. As soon as that experience happened, I quit my job. I never went back to being an engineer again. And I said, this right here, this experience is going to do something. I don't know what it was, but I just knew that it's going to go somewhere. And I started floating every day, floating on different substances, floating with my full body shaved, floating on caffeine, not sleeping, sleeping the whole day. I tried all the different things I could think of, and I started mapping these things out. And I was able to form a pattern, something that it was doing to me, and how I was bringing something new into my awareness from the perceived reality that I was experiencing in my day-to-day life. And then I started my own company, and I started coaching people, and I partnered up with all the float centers in Melbourne, a few of them. And now it's in a stage where I'm able to help people transform their life based on what I've experienced in my life till now. And yeah, and randomly Esoteric asked me if I want to come do a talk. I said, okay, why not? So before we get into what it's doing to your consciousness, I want to present a fundamental principle in the universe that everyone can observe. There's a Vedic chant that goes Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purna Purnamudakshate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Some of you might have heard this before. What it says is, you take a whole, like a whole, and you take a piece from the whole remains the whole, and the piece is also the whole. So this idea is fundamental to everything in the universe. For example, I can take anyone's DNA here and reconstruct exactly who you are till date, just with one strand of your DNA. So I take a piece from the whole and I can represent the whole from that single piece. I take a broccoli, I take a small piece from the broccoli, hide the big piece. I know exactly about the big piece just from this little small piece. And that's true for everything in the universe. So using this principle, we can deduce a lot of different things when it comes to your consciousness, because this has to hold true in every plane, in every dimension that you experience. So if you notice, somehow there's a relationship between what you feel within you and what's going on outside in your life, right? There seems to be some sort of a relationship. And for example, if 2 people are walking down the street, one person is extremely happy and the other person's not feeling so good, then this guy goes, oh, look, it's a nice day, everyone's happy, flowers are out, da 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 da, and the other person probably bumps into someone, trips over. It's the same reality that's being presented, but what they perceive from it is different. What they're manifesting out of that is completely different. So what it's based on is the internal pattern that you're holding within you. For example, if everyone was in fear, what you would perceive in this reality would be completely different to what you would perceive if you were in joy, right? So when you enter the float tank, now you're floating. Usually a session runs for an hour. You have music in the beginning for about 5 minutes, then 55 minutes of silence, and then music at the end to let you know your session is done. So it takes about 10-15 minutes for you to get into it, and you settle in, and your mind does your chatter, whatever, da 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 da, and then suddenly your body disappears, and now you hit this new spot. First level of that is you start noticing patterns. Because there's no external environment, your mind trips into this new state where it's like, oh, what is this pattern that I'm holding which is making my reality what I'm experiencing. That is really powerful if you think about it, because now you have straight access into what your pattern is. So the first step is identifying that, yes, I have a pattern, and this pattern is manifesting in my life over and over and over again. Then what happens is your body feels absolutely amazing because you've just been in zero gravity for an hour. So imagine that. There's no stress on your muscles, your joints feel amazing, the magnesium goes into your skin, and you don't feel any aches or pains in your body. So you've changed one pattern already. So you come in, you don't feel good, you go into the tank, and as you come out, your body feels great. Suddenly, you start perceiving something new in the same reality. You haven't done anything. Just imagine you go in, you come out, and your body feels great, and what you perceive is different already, right? So that's one aspect. It's like completely changing the one pattern of you. The second thing what happens is, because there is no distraction, you're able to dissect what it is that's causing you a problem in the tank much faster. So what I mean by that is, there's another principle in the universe where if you wind something up, if you let it go, it unwinds itself. Law of entropy. If you build something, the universe breaks it down for you automatically. Now the same principle applies where if you cut yourself, if you don't do anything, your body heals itself, right? In the tank, when you don't do anything for an hour, your psyche starts to heal itself. It goes back to its natural state. How many times in a day do you give yourself a chance to reset? Or how many times in a week do you actually give yourself a chance and say, I'm not going to do anything right now? Because that's what creates a reset. When you let it go, that's when it happens. We never do it. But now, because we're so overstimulated in our life, we have a tool, which is the tank, obviously, and you go in and you don't do anything for an hour. And suddenly you'll start seeing these changes within you. Your psyche starts to heal itself. And another pattern has been changed, right? So this is representing in your reality. And the third thing I noticed was my consciousness was vibrating in a completely different zone after I started floating regularly. And what do I mean by that? So what I'm perceiving from this reality right now is two-step action. The first step I'm doing is I am bringing something into my awareness, but at the same time, I am removing something from my attention. To see you guys, I have to bring you in the front and ignore the background. But I need the background in order for you to see, right? What the tank does is, when you come out from the tank, the attention you give things is now different. What you perceive and what you leave out is different to when you started off before. So automatically, you're conscious of a completely different thing. It's insane. Like, imagine you just have the same reality, you go in and you're conscious of a new idea, of something that's new, rather than the same thing happening over and over again. We're talking about sensory deprivation tanks. Have you guys tried it? Okay. So, yeah, so you give attention and you remove it, you move the other stuff back. Remember the principle that I mentioned earlier, where the whole remains the whole and the piece is also the whole? So now if you bring that principle back, in this given moment right now, the whole universe is in front of you as a whole. You can experience everything there is to experience ever in this moment right now. But what you experience is based on what you bring into your awareness and what you're pushing out. Because this principle holds true in all dimensions, you have every single thing that you want to experience in this moment. For example, if I ask you, what are the 10 things you like about this place? You can write a list of 10 things. What are the 10 things you don't like? You can write a list about that. Where your attention goes is based on where your consciousness is vibrating. What are you conscious of? Does that kind of make sense? So now, when you're in the tank, right, and you're setting all these patterns and you're resetting it, another thing happens where, see, 95% of your life is subconsciously driven, right? Your conscious input is only 5%. So to access anything in your subconscious, you need to get where subconscious exists, right? For example, if I subconsciously told everyone here, who here thinks is a nice person? No one thinks they're a nice person here, right? Okay. If you think you're a nice person, that's your subconscious belief, then you're going to behave like, try to be a nice person. Because that's who you think you are, right? If you think you're this person, oh, I have good skills in this, I suck at this, then that's how you would perceive reality. That's how you would live your life, because that's who you think you are. And that's not a conscious choice, it's coming from your subconscious, right? So now, in the tank, what happens is you go through a series of brain waves. Right now, everyone's probably in alpha if you're relaxed, or if you just had coffee or something, or chai, you're in beta, which is really fast brain waves. So when it's really fast, you don't have any access into your subconscious. You slow it down. When you meditate, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to slow your brain waves down. As you keep slowing it down further and further and further, you enter this state called a theta state. You must have heard of it before. Theta states is where your subconscious lives, right? This is when it gets really interesting. In the tank, around about 40-minute mark, you enter theta states automatically, right? Because the environment provides you that access. If you don't practice, obviously you won't stay there long, you'll just get out of it and you'll fall straight into sleep. But if you can practice this, then you can hover in theta states for at least 15-20 minutes, right? And what that does is, now, when you're in theta state, you implant an idea of who you think you are, which is the person who wants to be somewhere. For example, if I want to be, say, a musician of some sort, right? Then I start implanting the idea in me, in subconscious, that I am that person already. And you keep practicing. And as you keep doing this, imagine what's going to happen. You come out from the tank, you think you're someone new, and you start living your life. Your pattern has changed. What you bring into your awareness is completely different. You've just changed your whole reality, completely. Huh? Yeah. It's simple, right? When you look at it in this angle. But what the problem is when you go into the tank, you're probably really tired. You've just had like a whole week of work. You know, you've had a really hard time, you can't focus on anything, da-da-da-da-da. And then you go into the tank. And now your whole brainwaves is just stuck in beta. You're thinking about if I send that email, did I turn the gas off? And you're spending about 30 minutes doing this, right? And what happens is, as you're spending time, you're like, oh no, I have to get into my theta states, I have to get into my subconscious and do all these things. And you're trying to do it. The act of you trying is going to stop you from getting there. Right? Just because you're trying to relax and get into it, when do you try? When it's not happening for you. That's when you're trying. If it's not happening for you, then I guess it's not. So what I'm trying to say is, you have access into all these amazing states in the tank, but it's practice. You have to take it as a tool, the same way you go to a gym, you know, or the same way you practice yoga, or whatever you do to keep that consistency. As you keep practicing, you will start hovering in theta states for at least 40 minutes. And just imagine what you can do when you have access to 95% of your behavior, 95% of your thought process. It is absolutely insane what you can do. I mean, 4 years ago, I was stuck in a job, hating it, right? And now I'm able to do this. I mean, it's just like anyone can do it, but it's just a matter of understanding how to do it. What happens usually is, because subconscious is 95% of your life, people just come to me and say, Vijay, just give me a technique. Just give me a technique. What should I do in the tank? You see what the problem with that is? If who you think you are is not sorted, right? And your life principles aren't sorted, your line of thought is not clear, you have no discipline, and now you're trying to apply a technique into your life, like meditation or whatever. How do you expect a change? Like, because who you think you are is completely off of what you're trying to do. So it doesn't quite work, right? Am I going too fast? Okay. So as you keep raising your consciousness, as you keep getting aware of different things in your life, you will start experiencing a different reality automatically. So imagine a building with about 14 or 15 different levels to it, right? And each level has about 10 to 15 different rooms, and each room is a set of thoughts, set of emotions, set of experiences that you can experience. Now, if your consciousness is vibrating in fear, you only have access into these rooms. You can only access fear, doubt, worry. So these are the rooms and experiences you have. As you raise your consciousness and move it up, then you have access to contentment, joy, love. And as you keep raising it up, then you have access into the supreme consciousness, which I'll get into in a second. So the aim, using the tank, would be to raise your consciousness, right? You move it up. And as you keep moving it up, what you perceive from the universe is completely different. Now the question is, okay, how do you do it? How do you raise your consciousness in the tank, right? And another question is, how is it actually doing it? What is the principle in which it's doing it? So I'll explain the principle first, and then I'll show you guys, I'll share with you a couple of tips on how to actually float properly, effectively, and how to raise your vibration. So why is it that the float tank is able to do this? You could ask me, oh, can I not do it naturally? Well, not naturally, but can I not do it without the tank? Of course you can, 100%. If you can enter theta states at will, amazing, you can do it, right? But there's another thing the tank does which no other environment in the world is doing right now, that I haven't come across. So take the universe. It's a pulse. It's a vibration. Everything is a vibration. We all know this. Now, a vibration has three properties. It's a wave. So it's a crest and a trough, and it's a node in the middle. Every time it goes up and down, it has to go through the middle point, right? So these are the properties. Now, take anything in your life, it'll have an up and a down. Mountains, when you say mountains, I know you're talking about valleys instantly, right? If you say good, I know there's something bad. For example, take music. Music is a combination of sound and silence put together. If it was just sound, it would go beep. That's not music. But you need the silence in the middle, which is the opposite, in order to give birth to music, right? You have life, you have death. You have waking life and you have sleep. These two are the opposites, okay? You're awake and you're asleep. Now, in our day-to-day life, what we do is we indulge in our senses, sensory experience, consciously. Consciously we want to eat something, consciously we want to listen to something, consciously we want to touch, taste, smell. What do you do which is the opposite of conscious sensory input? Sleep is the opposite of waking, because you're not consciously doing it. It's a rhythm. You have to like sleep. There's no other way. You're not consciously doing it. Huh?
Rest. I love it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you rest. Rest is also restricted environment stimulation therapy, which is also floating.
Yeah.
Exactly. So now, when you go into the tank and you consciously remove all your senses, what you're doing is you're completing a huge cycle in your life. Conscious stimulation and then conscious withdrawal of all senses. This wasn't existing before. This was only possible through samadhi, highest state of meditation before. But now, because we live in a world where it's so overloaded with senses, we've come up with this amazing tool where you can just go in and withdraw your senses consciously. right? Now, because it's the up wave, you create a balance in your life. When you come out, see, you don't know you're happy till you see someone sad. You don't know you're rich till you're poor. So you don't know how good your senses are till you actually withdraw them consciously. And then you bring it back into the world and you're like, wow, look at this, it feels amazing. That is the principle in which floating is actually balancing you out. The moment you find balance and stillness, consciousness can now raise up. It's like a screw, where if it's perfectly aligned, it can go up and down. But if it's out of balance, then it can't do it, it gets stuck. Once you find balance, consciousness moves up, you raise your vibration, and suddenly you're in a completely different reality. So that's another angle in which the float tank is doing it. Are you guys enjoying it? Yes. Okay. Thank you. So as consciousness moves up, right, if you have symmetry or balance, consciousness has a chance to move up easily. When that happens, you will see a few features in your life change automatically. There's a lot of things that change, but I want to highlight a few of them. The first thing that changes is you get out of your own way. What do I mean by that? See, there's a part of you that's growing your bones, that's growing your hair, that's making you breathe right now. Everything, there's a part of you that's doing it. Are you doing it? So who's doing it? You are doing it, but you just can't put it into words and tell me how you do it. You don't have to think about it. That's the best part. If you had to think about beating your own heart, everyone would be dead right now. Right? So that part is automatic, we say, but it's not automatic, it's fucking amazing. It's like, how do you even do it? While you're listening to this shit, while that's going on there, and you're multiplying every cell in your body without even trying, right? And we have self-doubt, like, can I do little things in my life and all those things, but that's later. So what I'm trying to get to is that everyone has this innate intelligence, and the best part is you've never learned all this ever. You've never learned what wavelengths to convert into your eyes and give it a color. Like when? Never. And you do it automatically, instantly, just like that, right? So there's an intelligence that's running through every single person's body. Every being has this intelligence, it's innate. What happens is when you, the part that's doing the thinking, when that part gets involved, then shit fucks up. That's the part you have to go and fix. That's the part you need to go and like work on. But when that intelligence takes over, there's nothing for you to do but enjoy the ride. Just like, yeah, this is what it is. So when you're in the tank, you enable that intelligence to take over, right? So if you look at it in terms of biology, then there's a part in your brain called the prefrontal cortex. Now this part is, if it's too active, it's an amazing part. It's the most developed part of the human brain. What it does is it puts things into place that is not there, but also it makes you do the harder thing because it's the right thing to do. So it's like a different kind of evolution. But what it also does is takes you, when I say you, the awareness, and moves it into future or moves it into the past. That's also its capabilities to like predict and memory to go back. If it's too active, then you're not living your life here, you're always there. Too much. So, in the tank, the prefrontal cortex shuts off. You don't exist. After about 40 minutes, you don't know if you're awake, if you're sleeping, if you're like dreaming, you don't know what's going on. But you don't have to know, that's the best part. So once you're not there, you come out, and suddenly this part is so calm. And everything you do is in your true nature. That intelligence that is beating your heart, now it has a little sneak peek. It's like, okay, let me take over. So the conscious thought goes down, okay? And you start doing things without thinking. Not in the sense that you'll be stupid, but in a sense that you're just flowing with what's happening, right? If you can keep that state, then imagine your life. instead of becoming what you want, you actually become what you are. It's just simple. You just keep going that way, right? But our day-to-day life obviously brings it back where you have to think. So then you go into the tank, cut out the prefrontal cortex. When you come out, now you're again in the self, right? So that's another thing the tank is doing. And this self has a very peculiar property. When I talk about the self, it is the self as in the I, right? Not the egoistic I. How does everyone here experience the universe? As I, right? Every single being is experiencing the universe as I. Is my I the only I, or is everyone's I the same? It's all the same I. And that I is experiencing the universe. So, that's the self I'm talking about, the supreme self, which is expressing each other's expressions, I guess, different forms, different whatever. Now, as you keep raising your consciousness in the float tank, right, this I will start accessing or gaining like the driver's seat in your life. And you will see that you'll hit a state of consciousness which is pure bliss. It is one of the best feelings ever. I don't even know if it's a feeling or not. It's just you go into the tank. Obviously, you have to have other practices going for you. And you just hit this spot where it's not relaxation, it's not sleeping, it's not separation, it's not you. There's nothing there. And that feeling is just pure bliss. It's kind of like a mystical feeling. And not a lot of people even like talk about it when it comes to the float world. They just talk about recovery and just feeling relaxed or whatever. But that's why I was excited to share this, because the self starts to shine through every single person. Just imagine that feeling where everyone is just the true self. It's actually insane if everyone is just the true self. And for that, unfortunately, right now in the current world, we need some tools, different tools. And that's where the float tank perfectly fits in. Just perfectly sits in that spot where it gives you access into the self. If you have any questions, just like shoot at it. That's no problem. Okay?
Yeah, I was doing the ice immersion as well as the man doing the float tanks as well. So the ice immersion, then go into the sauna and then do the float.
Nice.
And then incorporate the 3D.
Cool.
Yeah.
So he was saying that he does the ice immersion and then the sauna and then the float tank. So that's a really good practice, because you're like shocking your body first and then you're like fully letting it go in the tank. Also, what happens is there's another mysterious state called flow states. How many of you have heard of flow states? Nice. How many of you have experienced flow states? Yeah. Right? So flow is that peak state. Flow is when you're almost 500 times more efficient. Flow is when there's no time, there's no space, and you don't exist again in the same state. So you actually are not there, right? So again, flow is I was just telling someone else today, flow is a really peculiar concept. I want to talk about flow because floating goes hand in hand with flow. So, for example, if I take a challenge, to enter flow states, this is how you do it. You pick a challenge that is in relation to your skill. I was giving someone an example earlier. If you play tennis, right, and one's a world champion and the other one's an amateur, how would the match go? The world champion's probably bored, the amateur is anxious, there's no contest. But if you play someone in your same level, then what happens is you have a challenge in front of you which you think you can beat, so you put your effort into it, you tune in. When you tune in, you're withdrawing your senses, it's called pratyahara. You tune in, you're playing the game, you see a result. You release dopamine, you get a reward. And now you want more of that. And now you've created a feedback loop. And now you entered flow states. Consciousness loves flow states because it doesn't have to think, right? When you enter the tank and you float for about I don't know, an hour, hour and a half. And when you come out, you automatically are in flow states. There's nothing for you to do to enter flow. I actually still don't know how it's doing it, but it's incredible. For example, if you have any work, anything creative, just if you have to have focus at any point, go for a float, come back, and I promise for the next 6 hours, I mean, if you don't have your phone with you, you will be in the zone and just blast it out. It's that powerful. Of course, there's running, yoga, chanting, and breathing, pranayama. All these things are also into flow states, but that's effort. Yeah, you just have to book a session and go lie down in a pool of water and actually not do anything for an hour. It's like the easiest thing. If floating was a pill, everyone would be dropping 3 at a time all the time. 100%. Okay? So, okay. I didn't prepare for this talk, so I'm just thinking what I want to talk about. Sorry? Okay, that's awesome. I was in flow till then. So, flow states, what it actually does is clears your line of thought as well. The most important thing in your life is your line of thought. Line of thought is it needs to be crystal clear, but when you're distracted, your line of thought is fuzzy. And if you have a fuzzy line of thought, then your reality is fuzzy. But when you're in the tank and there's no distractions, it cleans up your line of thought. For example, if you have to use your mind and come up with a decision, although your decisions don't matter, you have to come up with the right decision, go into the tank, enter theta states, and then when you come out, your decision is made for you automatically. The part that knows has made the decision for you automatically, and you just have to go with it. Right? So it clears up the line of thought. That is so important. How many of you can say here your line of thought is clear? Nice. And that helps. Once you know exactly what to do. But because of our distractions, we don't know what to do, and we don't know where to start, and it's overwhelming. When you're in the tank, there's nothing for you to do, and you can just bring this into your conscious awareness, and you just work it out, and it's just clear. Yeah. So basically what I'm trying to say is float. Go float yourself. Yeah? Thank you. Oh yeah, so I'll share with you how I float, and I'll share with you 5 steps. Thank you. So for me, floating, I float in a pattern. That's the key. It's not just a one-off thing that I do here and there. So I decide that I have like cues. Every time my body feels a certain way, or for example for me, I get a bit gumby. If I'm cooking, I drop shit, or like the way I'm chopping my vegetables is not like, it's just random, or I'm not thinking about it. I'm like, okay, I need to go for a float, right? So I do it in a pattern. Every time that happens, roughly once a week. Okay, when you go in the tank, there are a few things you want to try and do and a few things you want to try and avoid for a good float. So the first thing you want to do is no coffee. So no caffeine before you float, because caffeine's a stimulant. It gets your mind racing, right? But if you want to like calm down and enter theta states, but you're stuck in beta, it's not going to work for you. It's like meditating on coffee. It doesn't quite work, right? So no yeah?
I sometimes just microdose myself with mushrooms.
Nice.
And go in.
You're a hard guy.
It's really
So he's like, he microdoses in mushroom and then goes in. So yeah, no coffee. Go in the tank, and before you go in the tank, like she said, set an intention first. See, everything here has come from someone's intention. Someone wanted to do this, so it's come true. If you go in with no intention, then, I mean, you can float around, but you're not giving it a direction. But the trick with intention is it has to be flexible. Because your intention, for example, could be to go in and relax or figure out something, but the tank could be giving you something totally different. So if you're firm with your intention, too firm, then float's not going to give you anything. So just have a general idea of like, I would like to kind of explore this side of my life, or I would maybe Usually I tell people go in and come back a new person, right? So you start feeling that and you come out. So first is intention, flexible. Before you take a shower, by the way, make sure it's not hot water. It should be lukewarm or kind of cold, because the tank is set to your skin temperature. When you go in the tank, you don't want to be in cold water. You want to be in warm water, or at least like warmish, you know, it's kind of relaxing. So lukewarm shower, intention, go in. First thing when you go in the tank is you want to set your body position first, right? Because it's a new environment. If you haven't floated, even if you're floated, then you start bobbing around here and there, okay? So stretch your arms out, bring your arms back in, and see where you're comfortable first. Is your arms comfortable that way, that way, that way, here, here? You figure it out, okay? As you keep doing it, you'll know this is, I float like this. It's much comfortable. Opens this part up, sorry. Now, set your arms, touch the sides of the tank. Don't push, because it's actually a funny feeling. When you push on this side, you feel like you're traveling that way at 1 billion kilometers an hour, and you hit the other side. Yeah, it's true. And you might feel like you're spinning around in the tank and all that initially. So try and touch the sides. Slowly bring your arms in and stay still. The aim is to stay as still as possible. Not in the center of the tank, but on a part where you don't touch the sides, okay? Stay still. Try not to touch your face at any point. It's salt water, guys. Your eyes are gonna sting, right? Try not to touch your face. And exactly when you decide that, your face is gonna itch, 100%. And it goes away in 5 seconds, I promise. Yeah. Okay. Okay. His question was, how do you clear your mind in the tank? I'll just get to that after I show you a few more things. Cool. So position your body, stay still, and none of these sneaky ones here, because they also get you, trust me. Okay? And you might feel like you're spinning around. Turn the light off and shut the door, right? And usually I would say no music in the beginning if you've floated once before, because there's no reason for you to have music as a crutch. You just go straight into it. It's called a pure float. Nowadays float centers offer like different meditations and stuff like that in the tank. But personally, I think a pure float is better. Go in and light off. First thing what you do is after your body, second thing, sorry, is now you focus on your breath, right? Not as a meditation practice, but as a float in practice. This is for your float. What happens is, I personally recommend do 27 to 0, right? I chose 27 because it's a yogic number. It's a multiple of 108. It's not too long for you to spend your whole float session focusing on your breathing. It's not short enough for you to lose count. It's like good enough for you to focus. 27 to 0, and that sets you up for a float every single time. And even at night when you're sleeping, if you just go 27 to 0, your body's like, it's time for me to relax. It's a cue, right? So you go 27, 26. Yeah, but you don't deep breathe. You just observe your breath. Whatever the pattern is, it doesn't matter. What you're trying to do is, see, your mind always wants to escape from the tank every single time, right? But the aim is to stay in the tank. So first, when you set your body, you're in the tank. When I say you, your awareness. Second, when it's on your breath, you're still in the tank, right? And what happens is after about 10 breaths, you go and you come back. You're like, oh, fuck, where was I? Okay, let's start again. So it's practice. The moment you get 27 to 0, you completely change your brain chemistry, right? Now you're in a different state of consciousness. Your brain chemistry has changed. You've given focus. Now your mind is going to start taking over. So if it's your first float, don't try anything. Don't try and relax. Don't go by what Joe Rogan said. Nothing. Right? You go in the tank and you let your mind go. The trick is you're not creating, or you're not craving, or you're not pushing it. You just go with it. Keep going, keep going, keep going. And slowly your mind starts to ignore your body, and in about 35-40 minutes, you're gone. But the moment you say, no, I want to go, I want to make my mind blank, it's like saying, hey man, there's a treasure in the top of this hill. It's all yours. Just make sure you don't think of a pink elephant when you touch it. Like, it doesn't work, right? So aim is you go with it in your first float, and as you're going with it non-stop, you zone out. Okay? So if it's the second or third float, what you do is you go in, you have an intention, and as you hover in the theta states, right? So your breath will take you into theta states. If not, if you follow the thought, it'll take you there. Or you can focus on anything else, your meditation practice, whatever you've tried. I would recommend not, because the float's going to give you something. The idea is to create a vision, right? You create a vision in your mind's eye. If you're trying to get your mind blank, right? You're trying to get your mind blank by pulling it into a state of blankness. Imagine it to be like a wild horse, and it's going to run here and there, right? Depending on your day, it's going to go everywhere. But you slowly pull it back, one after the other. So some thoughts you go, some you just like bring it back to your breath. You go and you bring it back to your breath. And over time, in about 15-20 minutes, it's blank. Because you're not trying to make it blank, you're just trying to like settle it. Yes. Okay, so try that. So after you go through all these phases, once you have a vision in your head, that is when it's super powerful, right? So go through the breathing, follow your mind for a bit. Once you're in theta state, now I want you to close your eyes and visualize an apple for me. What can you tell me about your apple? Anyone?
Granny Smith.
Yeah. Most people would say it's color, right? Now, if you notice, an apple is not just a visual thing. It has taste, smell, it's got texture, and it has a weight, and it has to be somewhere in space. So when I ask you to visualize, most people just go with the vision. But the trick is to put all your 5 senses in it. Now visualize an apple and put all your 5 senses in it. What is the sound of it? What is the crunch? How does it smell? How does it taste? Now that's a real apple. Huge difference, right? Now, when you're in the tank and you visualize whatever you want it to be, right? Put all your 5 senses in it. Start living that feeling and let those emotions run through your body and start vibrating in that zone already, right? Once you start doing that, when you come out from the tank, your awareness is different. The universe is always mirroring you, so your vibe is different. You bring that into place, which was always existing, but now you're aware of it and you push everything else aside. And that's how you create a new reality by transforming and raising your consciousness. So if you go for a float, intention, body position, breathing, subconscious, and then visualize. But visualize with all your 5 senses. I hope you guys enjoyed this talk. And yeah, go for a float. I'll give you my email. It's vijay@thefloatguru.net. So if you drop me an email and said you were in this talk, and if you're in Melbourne, then I can give you like a $20 off voucher on your next float at Beyond Rest. So if you guys want to try it, yeah, and you can also email me your experiences and share how your float was. Thank you. And any more questions? Yes, no questions. Let's get fucked up.
Can you say your email again?
Vijay, Vijay.